All right. As far as I know, we should go. We should be live at this very moment. So, welcome back, everybody, for another podcast. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about the recent show Quiet on Set and just some recent things about one sort of a review of that. How do we feel about it? That sort of thing. Looking back, what are some thoughts, ideas? Excuse me, recovering from a cold. Um, but yes, thoughts, ideas, opinions, blah 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 blah, and just podcast and chill ultimately. And we have with us today Sydney, who
So,
she is here with us again to talk about the show. So buckle up, keep it funky, keep it fun, keep it fresh, and hopefully anyone who watches enjoys, and feel free to like, comment, subscribe. It really does help out the channel, and um, any feedback is also most appreciative. So without further ado, we are here today to talk about Quiet on Set. um, Sydney,
yes.
what do you think of, and this will tie in to our discussion later. What do you think of children seeing, um, if maybe an employee sold like movie theater tickets to like Quiet on Set, or um, just maybe like an R-rated or a PG-13, or you know an adult rated film in in general? What is your opinion on that? I'm curious.
On children seeing like more like R-rated things.
Or well, just like
I
something that's PG-13. Like, what is your opinion? Like, at what, like, do you think a 10-year-old boy or girl should be able to purchase a PG-13 movie ticket and go see a movie? And this is ultimately, um, so this whole question is tying into just a joke, so just take it lightly. But I'm just curious, like, I just need you to answer the question.
well, if it's
If you start,
PG-13, I think that's fine.
like, is that how you honestly feel, though?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Uh, what about if you have some, excuse me, still recovering from this terrible, terrible cough, cold situation. Um, what if they're from Norway? Like if they're Norwegian?
I I don't see how that would be much different, but I feel like I'm getting set up on the
Okay,
butt end of a joke here.
okay, um, okay. Um, so you are aware Europe uses Norway in particular uses the metric system, correct?
Yes.
Well, then, really, um, one uh, could confer, or infer that PG-13 to us is like PG-9 to them, right?
Not how the metric system works, but for the sake of your joke,
Oh, I
I
know. I'm
guess.
very familiar with the metric system and its inner mechanisms. I'm just I know you wanted to dispute that, but I'm over here trying to prevent international conflicts. So that's basically the joke.
That was so funny, William. Oh my goodness.
Hey, yo, my name's not Will. It's Star Lord.
Oh, my
On this
apologies, our
podcast,
Lord.
I prefer to be addressed as Star Lord. Just kidding. I don't give a fuck what you call me.
I'm sure you
Um,
would prefer that.
whatever. Anyway, so Quiet on Set. Uh, I recently heard about this documentary. Um, saw a few things online. Didn't really think much of it, because working the daily 9 to 5, you don't really have um, as much time as you would maybe like to uh, go and watch these things, right? Well, anyway, I was scrolling on one of the apps, social media apps. I don't recall which one it was. Scrolling, and I saw Drake Bell, which immediately caught my eye. Um, and I had thought to myself, wait, what is this? What is this regarding? What is this about? Um, and immediately, it played like a brief clip of him um, during his, infamous interview in this. I don't know if I'd use the word infamous, maybe famous interview during the uh, documentary. And my apologies again. I'm going to be shortness of breath all night because it's just this weird ass cough that's been going around and it sucks ass. I also had pneumonia years ago, so that didn't help. Um, anyway, but I saw this clip of Drake Bell drinking water, and it immediately caught my attention. And I thought, oh, what what is this about? Nickelodeon. I had heard, some weird things here and there growing up, uh, into early adulthood, and didn't really know much of it. And then I saw about this documentary, The Dark Side of Kids TV, and I thought, oh yeah, well that tracks. So I'll have to give it a watch. Well, a week ago I watched it, and very interesting, very interesting. Short documentary, maybe 3 hours long, 45 45 minutes per episode, 4 episodes. So um, yeah, um, and we're gonna get into Drake Bell's interview and all of that later on. Um, but I want to hear from Sydney. So from what you had seen, um, what are just some thoughts that come to mind of the Quiet on Set documentary?
Well, well, first of all, it was heartbreaking. I knew that I've seen throughout the years different just child stars in general. Doesn't matter if it was Nickelodeon, Disney, whatever. Child stars kind of have this kind of spiral as they got into young adulthood, and they always
Hmm.
bring it back to what they had to deal with in their careers as children.
Right.
Um, and so, uh, of all the things that I did see on that documentary, nothing really surprised me. It just it was more of the same story, but never a it's never a story that you like hearing, if that makes any kind of sense.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So, I've heard lots of stories. There's Amanda Bynes,
Yeah.
there's Jeanette McCurdy. Um, Even if you go over to the Disney side of things, you've got Lindsay Lohan, who had a very public, spiral after she got out of child acting.
Yeah.
So, so none of it was necessarily surprising. It was just very, very disappointing. It was a well done documentary. I'm not saying that I'm not saying it was a bad documentary. It's just the content was just very disappointing.
And you mean that as in disappointing, like the outcome?
Like, yeah, and there's so many things that there's so many things that should have happened
Yeah.
and they didn't.
Yes.
So,
I remember there
um,
was an interview early on in one of the uh, earlier episodes where, and of course we'll be using some names during this podcast, but we're not gonna. I don't, I don't know some of the offenders by heart, their name or where they're serving their sentence. So it's just one of those things that if I can't remember their name, it's not because I'm trying to protect them in any way or cover for them. I just don't know their name because just I just don't remember. But there is a gentleman who was on set, I believe, during the time period of the Amanda Show, and um, he had exchanged contact information with both the mother and one of and her daughter, um, who was part of that show at the time. This is like back in like the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, turn of the century. Ultimately, um, the mother was aware that the daughter had, um, she was exchanging emails back and forth with this older gentleman who was a part of the production, um, who,
I
maybe,
don't know if gentleman is the word I would use.
okay, older person. I just, I don't mean it in that regard. Um, older dude. Um, they were exchanging emails back and forth, and everything was fine. The mother was monitoring the emails. Well, one day, um, the girl gets an email, and the girl's sort of just mortified and just shuts down the computer, turns it off or whatever, and then runs to her room and locks herself in her room. Really, essentially. And the mom's just like, "What's going on? Come talk to me." And then parents being parents gonna parent. Um, she goes and investigates. What did she see that was so just um, out of the ordinary on the computer? And she goes and she checks, and of course she finds um, a nude photo from this guy who was exchanging these emails with this minor. And I can look him up pretty quick. I don't know his name or anything, um, but yeah, it's just. But I think the reason why I remember this story and why it sticks out to me the most is because what happened to her, yes, being terrible, but how the mother responded to the incident, I also felt like was very. What It's not that it was mishandled later on. It felt as though in the beginning it was mishandled because she you know, during the interview, the mom states, I didn't go to the police immediately because, you know, what are they gonna do? They're gonna think I'm a terrible mom, and that's something that she says verbatim in that interview. And I'm like thinking to myself, fuck anyone who thinks you're a terrible mom. Like, go report this guy. What are you doing? Why are you waiting? I just
The
thought that
moment
was.
she decided, the moment she decided she wasn't going to say anything, that's what made her a terrible mom.
Well, I'm like, why? I'm like, why would you not report that immediately to the police? It was just incredibly. I mean, a child not reporting it is one thing, but the mother not reporting it to the police. I don't know how much time had passed, or if maybe there's a discrepancy that I'm not aware of. Um, but she just outright states within the interview that they did not immediately go to law enforcement, which I thought was just blasphemy. But that's just my opinion. And of course, that's sort of that also not a similar situation, but different situation with some of the writers who worked for Dan Schneider during this time period. The female writers, like there was two female writers that had to share a salary for an indefinite amount of time. I don't know how long it was, but and they were being harassed and treated very poorly within the workplace. And it's like, one, usually these, um, usually these people they have like they're part of a union, like a writers guild or a union or what, whatever. And I'm not laughing, I'm coughing, so sorry. Um, but they they didn't they didn't go like if somebody is breaking the law and you know someone's breaking the law and like let's say it's your boss and of course you can't always trust your employer or your workplace to follow through to either conduct an investigation or hold people accountable to the extent that they should be held accountable to. um, at that point you're left with not a whole lot of choices such as going to the police or going to law enforcement, or going to filing a report or going to your lawyer or whatever. I just think it's interesting how there seemed like there is a higher number than usual within this documentary of people who didn't go immediately to um, the law.
Yeah, I feel like um and obviously this happened before um all of the things that they talk about in the documentary happened before the Me Too movement.
Mhm.
And I think because didn't that movement start?
That was around
I mean,
2015,
correct me if
2016.
I'm wrong, but yeah, but didn't it start kind of out of like the music and entertainment, like out of the entertainment industry?
I mean,
Or did they just
I
kind of
don't know.
piggyback off of that?
I don't know about like music industry. That was mostly like so the Me Too movement, at least from
Yeah,
my head canon, is it had started around 2015, late 2015, maybe early 2016 or late 2016 when all the information was coming out with like Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, all that stuff.
yeah, because I know that there were lots of female um, artists, music artists, that were coming out and saying that they were being sexually harassed by their labels to be able to continue staying within their label.
Hmm.
So, I mean, regardless, I know that, when the Me Too movement hit, um, and I'm just going to throw this out there as a woman, I do believe that women should be believed, but not every woman is being honest. And so I'm just going to throw this out there. Definitely believe somebody when they start to say that they're experiencing abuse or assault, but make sure that you have all of your facts together, um, because the worst thing ever would be to just undoubtedly believe anybody and be wrong, because that, especially like sexual abuse, is the fastest way to ruin somebody's life if they didn't do it. That's my little caveat, whatever. But the one thing that I do think that the Me Too movement did positively, is it brought out all of those weird moments. They bring it up in the documentary too, but like, why are these teenage girls doing scenes that are,
Provocative.
to a child's eye? Yeah, like to a child's eye, an innocent child's eye, they're not. They're just weird. They're a little funny, but to an adult, a fully formed adult's eyes, it's like, why do you have Ariana Grande squeezing a phallic looking potato trying to get the juice out of it? That is weird. And why would any
Yes.
child, no child would come up with that on their own. So,
Right.
um, but it caused everybody as a society to start
Yes.
looking at these things going, well, whose idea was that? Why was that a thing? And also,
Yeah.
um, but also being able to say, hey, this really shady shit was going on, and like with the Me Too movement, fear of having all of the repercussions of it and not being believed because somebody else basically bought out the court system to get away with it. Um, like back then in the early 2000s, in the late 90s, and it's still a thing now, but it was definitely more prevalent then. I didn't want, I don't want to say anything. I might lose my job, or I don't want to say anything. They'll just bury me in legal fees. And so I feel like it was easier to hide all of those things behind the scenes than it is now, especially with social media being the way that it is.
Right.
Uh, yeah, but yeah, all of those people that were just like, why didn't you say anything? Like, I'm not saying that they were right by not saying anything. I'm just
Well,
saying that I understand
as a vic-
where that fear
yeah,
comes from.
right. But as soon as a victim chooses not to come forward, or acknowledge their attacker, or ensure that maybe they are reprimanded, or they're essentially paying for their sins, for whatever terrible act they have committed, um, or law that they have broken. As soon as a victim decides to stay silent, not only does the perpetrator win, they have almost won indefinitely, um, almost like that. I feel like that they have not only they win not only because of what they did, they win. Um, they they have like a sort of power over the victim, a hold over them because they didn't come forward or say anything, which I understand. It's not easy, but if you don't do your sort of due diligence, um, the same thing can happen to other people. Or you could have the situation where they do come forward and then nothing is done.
Right.
So,
Um,
excuse me. God, this cough is terrible.
Also, since it never came up, since it never came up, I'm just gonna throw this out there in case anybody actually is sensitive to this. Trigger warning: themes of sexual assault will be talked about, but also themes of child abuse. But I don't know. I might have a different kind of view on, you know, like again, I'm absolutely an advocate. Like go to the authorities if you know of any kind of abuse going on, or if any kind of abuse has been going on with you. Um, However, so many sexual assaults are left unreported. Um, Nowadays, it's easier to get those kind of investigations going and actually getting justice for, or at least partial justice for what has happened to you. Um,
Right.
but and while I've never been a victim of sexual assault, I've
Okay, I think we're kind
been
of going off the rails. But keep going, keep going.
okay, but I do understand where there's that fear to um not come forward, not say anything, because then you have to relive it over and over and over again. You have to say something to you have to make the initial report, then you have to go to, the doctor and say it all over again, then you have to go in court and you have to say it to everybody in court. Like there's so many different ways. It's
Yeah,
almost like you're getting offended on again and again. So um, it's a scary process, but it is an important process because, like you said,
your
you know,
headset's cutting out.
these people. Oh no, I don't know how. I don't know what the problem is. Is it
That's
getting better?
yeah. No, it's fine now. It's good now.
Okay, but okay, good. But I don't even know what I was saying now. Hold on.
I will
Oh
point
yeah.
out we do.
So,
Oh, okay.
but yeah. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say we do have a chat from Katie. She asks. She states that the Me Too movement is what got Dan Schneider fired. Have you guys watched the Dan Schneider's response interview? Um, I have seen bits and pieces. I could definitely tell you that the guy, he looks less creepy because he looks like he's lost some weight and he actually has like a decent beard that covers up his creepy looking face. Um, and his hair actually looks a lot more not creepy. I don't know. He just has a generalized less creepy vibe, which I think is a great thing. However, um, hopefully, hopefully more shit can uh, maybe an outside source can conduct a real interview on Nickelodeon and find out what the fuck happened and what went on. But he did issue an apology, kind of the every way which way to Sunday, which it seemed it seemed like half-assed genuine, but it also definitely seemed like I'm saying this because holy shit, I need to cover my ass quick.
Yeah, it
Um,
definitely didn't feel very genuine to me. It felt very, I'm saying this so that nobody can say that I didn't say anything.
yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly what it was.
Because,
Um,
I mean,
oh, go ahead.
because even in the, even on, even in the documentary, um, Drake Bell says that he told Dan what, I think his abuser's name was Brian, right? Brian Peck, I think.
Yes, yes, but I don't think.
Um, but
I
he,
think. I think he told him that he was. I believe I'd have to go back and check, but I believe he told him that he was somehow connected, but that it had something to do with him. But I don't think he told him that he was the one who reported Brian. I could be wrong though.
yeah, I don't know.
He still hasn't apologized to the people affected. Yeah, he probably never will. That's how these type of people operate. He just refused to speak on quiet on set. Yeah, well, most yeah. If you're innocent and you have nothing to hide, why not come conduct an interview with the documentary? But of course he doesn't because um, he most likely has something to hide. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Uh, I no, that's fine. No, but yeah, it was he says yeah, because I also have only seen like snippets. I never ended up sitting down and watching his full thing because quite frankly the sound of his voice just grates. Um, but the little bit that I have heard, he says sorry in almost like a situational, like he's sorry about the situation.
Yes.
He doesn't actually, it's not like he apologizes for his mistakes. He doesn't apologize for what he allowed to happen.
Right.
It's more like, I'm sorry that everything turned out the way that it did. It was like, you had so much power to control what was going on. You had, like, Dan Schneider had that entire studio just, he had people massaging him. And you're really going to tell me that you didn't know that that stuff was going on? You're really going to tell me that you didn't allow things to go on that were definitely inappropriate? I mean, he has
Hmm.
documented like evidence of like sexual harassment in the workplace.
Yeah.
It's just so yeah, I part of the reason why I didn't feel super compelled to listen to his apology because I knew it was shit
Hmm.
and it wasn't going to be good enough.
There's a point where he's kind of interrupting the interviewer, and I was kind of shocked by that because the interviewer goes to ask him a question. He's just like, "Oh, I'm going to interrupt you," and it's just like, "Whoa, dude, let let the interviewer
Well,
let the
he wants to
interviewer do his
control the
job."
narrative.
Well, yeah, of duh, but let the interviewer ask the questions. But no, I agree with you. Oh,
So yeah, that's hmm?
did you say oh or so?
I think so, but
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't know. Did you want to?
um.
Do you want to move on to the next point?
Oh yeah. Of course. Um. Katie also says Dan called him and asked if it was about Drake. Yeah. Yes. Yes, he did. I don't recall if what Drake response what's what his response was, but I think he confirmed it or at least alluded to it because I remember he had stated that Dan informed him, "Hey, if you ever need anything, just let me know." Um, it sounded like that was that. Um, so ultimately, what are your thoughts on the show? Do you think it's good or bad? Like the quality now, stepping away from in stepping away from allegations, the victims, the crime, um, like obviously, I'll wait to say what I have to say, but what do you think? Do you think it was good or bad? Yes or no? And if so, why do you think it's good, or why do you think it's bad?
So I do think that it was a good documentary. Um, I think that they did a really good job of being able to show things from different lights and like yes, obviously Drake Bell coming forward and um, revealing his own trauma and assault for the first time publicly.
Yeah,
Um, like that was so pivotal. That was like it was honestly impressive um
and I think he's only
that
like
they were able
36,
to
37.
yeah he's not that old um but he's had that secret for years and years and years and he held that so close to the chest, like he just did not tell anybody about that.
Yeah,
um and so like even his co-stars didn't even know that that was something going on until all of this. So
yeah,
um so for them to first of all be able to actually have him respond in the way that he did, but also have that timing to where he felt safe, just either safe enough or healed enough or both to talk about it. Um, but I'm really glad that they didn't just make the entire thing about Drake. I
right,
mean, we
right,
love Drake,
right.
but like they were able to show that there were multiple facets of what was going on, and he was just part of it. Um, So like obviously that's the major bomb that everybody's talking about. But
Right.
the documentary itself, I feel like they did a really good job of being able to pull different people that have different points of view. I mean, um, they had somebody who worked in wardrobe who they
Yeah.
they even were anonymous. They never showed this person's face um, or revealed their name, talking about what was going on. So I feel like they had a really good balance of you know having people who had relevant things to say while still respecting what was going on. And I liked the fact that they had different like snippets of like this is the official response from Nickelodeon you know
Yeah. Which
when we
ultimately it
contacted
was the
them.
same
And
all across.
it was
Yeah.
you know insert eye roll here, very, it was a very diplomatic answer, but it didn't mean anything. Um,
Um.
so I liked the format of it, and I liked that it was in episodes instead of a full documentary. Um, because
Yeah.
I feel like, especially with how heavy the content was, it was good that they broke it up a little bit.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Um. It is kind of interesting though, and I think this is from more of like a business sort of strategy. They basically take Drake Bell's interview and they make it like the second to last or the last episode, and I think that was intentional. But I don't. I think it was intentional in terms of you know you start knowing maybe um, at the beginning of the show like, oh shit, Drake Bell's in this. Oh shit, he sits down for an interview. I want to watch that. Well, you don't get there till an hour and a half into the show. So, and I think that is
Mhm.
uh, somewhat intentional because they sort of save that for like more of a grander sort of finale. Um, but yeah, I thought the documentary was great. Um, and as as terrible as this might sound, I do hope they do more. But at the same time, you hope that there isn't more because you hope this is something that um, doesn't continue, and not just for children, um, but for adults on set or sets in general. Um, all right, my next question. Um, so, what did you? God, I gotta get rid of this cough, man. This is terrible. Um, what did you find most, if you had to pinpoint, what did you find most interesting about the documentary?
Mm.
Or what is something
I
that you found very interesting? Because
well,
it felt like this thing is sort of blown up at this point. And I don't think
mhm.
this is the end of the situation at all. I think things are just, this is like what's the
Oh, this is
analogy?
the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I mean, it did start getting pretty deep, but there's so much more than what we could probably even imagine.
Oh, there always will be with Hollywood, I can tell
One
you
of the
that.
things that I do have a question for you about all of that, but I'll wait. I'll stay on this point for now. But I think the thing that I found interesting, so you mentioned that mom that had said, "Oh, I didn't want to go to the police. I didn't want to seem like a bad mom." Um,
Yes.
why was the mom on the documentary but not her daughter?
Good question. I don't think her daughter, ever since that entire situation, her daughter never uh, went back into the business. From my understanding, from what I gathered from the interview, the daughter never went back to Hollywood or acting or
Mhm.
anything via entertainment whatsoever. She completely just stopped.
Yeah. So
And so I think
yeah,
they
but
interviewed the mom, and the mom, you know, okayed. Maybe she talked with her daughter and asked her daughter if she could still share her story for her. But yeah, no, the as far as I know, the daughter, um, who is the victim of the first perpetrator that they do go over, which is then later reviewed. There's multiple perps within the company, and that's just flat out creepy. Um, yeah, but it's later revealed that I don't think she wanted I don't think she wanted to show her face or be interviewed or associated with it in any way. So her mom was on the documentary, and that's the case I think for a couple other um, child actors. Their parents, like Drake Bell's father, is on the show, and you get a great sort of backstory as to like what happened, how did this happen, and they go into pretty good detail, especially with Drake, um, versus some of the other stories.
well, I think the thing about Drake's story is Drake himself was there. And so, you know, he was able to share his own experience, but they also had a solid parent to also feed into that.
Yeah.
But like going back to that first mom, I know that there's a lot of backlash online that I've been seeing against that mom
Ooh.
because like one of the first things that she said was that she always wanted to be an actress. She always wanted to be, famous. It's like, and so there's a lot of people online that are going, "Oh, so you're on this documentary telling your daughter's story
Well, but
and you never helped her, you never did anything."
we don't know that for certain though. We don't.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying how I feel about it. I'm just saying I know
Oh
that
no.
she's facing a lot of backlash online
Yeah.
from it.
Which I mean, yes and no. I can see why, and I can also see why not.
Mhm.
Um, Especially do I report this to the police? Yes or no? What do I do? Um, but it could be that maybe her daughter was okay with the mom um, talking
Yeah,
about it, but it also could very well be the opposite, and we just don't know. We just don't know.
yeah.
You know, we could speculate for hours on that end, but until more of the truth comes out, we just have no idea. And you said you had a
Mhm.
question for me. Was that? Am I correct?
Yeah, so yeah,
Hmm.
so you mentioned that, with you obviously have an acting career,
Previous.
that, you well, previous acting career, and you spent time on sets and whatnot.
Uh huh.
Um, I know that like at least one of the sets that you were on, you were there, and you were kind of a stand-in for a specific part because they needed somebody who wasn't a minor. What was
Yes.
your experience working with like like did you see like how was that situation handled from your own personal experience?
What do you mean?
Like so
Like the
like
situation?
like how so obviously we're talking about quiet on set and all of that, and
Yeah.
obviously what's come out of there is that these child actors were absolutely like um manipulated and put
Right.
into situations that they never should have been in, and everybody on set saw it, everybody on set knew it, but everybody kept their head down just to try to keep their own cover their own ass.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously when you were when you were doing your acting career and you were on these sets, things had since changed. But did like what was your experience watching how these child actors, these underage actors, were
Mm.
being interacted with?
um, well, I never really did many projects that had a lot of child actors. There's a few here and there, and most of them weren't really young children. They were like late teens, early adults, but yeah, not yet considered legal adults. So like within the state of Oregon at the time, a lot of these kids are like 15, 16, 17, 18, and I'm like an oddball number of like 21 up. So it's very much it's very much there's a few things to go over here. One, always assume a set is larger than it actually appears to be. Um, because it could be like, oh yeah, we're just filming in this one building. Um, but then you also have like the grounds that the building is on. I personally would consider that part of the set because, I mean, yeah, you can go into a warehouse and that's the set, but there's also stuff happening outside around the building. So that's something to keep in mind of, just at least in my opinion. Especially for safety, because it can get dark, and you're in an unknown part of town. Or at one point, I remember I drove out to past like Forest Grove, Oregon. I was on this set, and it was like an hour away from where I lived at the time in Portland, an hour and a half. And and just by the time you get out, it's like 8 o'clock at night or later, and you got to drive all the way home. It's just pitch black out there. So, it's one, stay safe. Uh, so I'd say always assume a set is larger than it appears to be. Um, I can definitely see how the documentary points out. They mentioned that. God, fuck this cough. I've got to get this figured out if I'm going to do podcast. Um, they had mentioned in the documentary that how, even though legal guardians or parents need to be with the children at all times, sometimes they would be separated because the children would need to be gathered up and then taken to a certain part of the set while the adults, waited outside or in a different part of the set. So that's why I say, assume that a set's larger than it actually is, because if you have, and that's another thing. Some of these sets are so large, like some of the scenes that we filmed American Vandal season 2 at the Mount Hood Community College. Uh, we're filming on set on an entire college campus, and most buildings you can just walk in and out of, free reign, unlimited access. So one, if you're a, if you're a perpetrator, if you're an offender or a pedophile, and it's like a field day in some of these sets. So I can definitely see how Nickelodeon is a at that time period 20 years ago was a sort of breeding ground or for these type of perpetrators, um, because sets are large. Parents aren't going to know their way around the set. Kids aren't going to know unless they're there more than the parents. Um, but the perps will. Um, and a lot of those scenes that we filmed, um, kids are being kind of herded around in groups like cattle. So it just kind of is what it is. Um, but yes, they did do their due diligence in having me. They needed someone who was 21 or older for the scene that we were filming, and then they, went over. They pulled me aside, informed me this is what the scene is, this is what it's regarding. Are you comfortable with that? Is something you want to do? Do you agree? Okay. Are you comfortable with signing consent form? Okay, perfect. Sign this contract, sign here, here, that whole shebang. And then, of course, we film the scene, move on from there. Um, but from my experience, there's depending on, just if you're on set, uh, always be alarmed of who is doing what, when, where, um, you know, within your immediate surrounding. Um, and yeah, if a kid goes missing with another staff member that they maybe shouldn't be, that can be concerning. That can be cause for concern. Because not Brian, but Drake's father in the documentary states that, oftentimes, oh, Drake would be, where's Drake? Oh, he's somewhere with Brian. That's not, who knows? I mean, all the times they're on set, everything could have been okay, but like Drake says in the documentary, he never wanted to go over to Brian's house when things started happening, and sounded like that's where a lot of things happened. But I would say, when you're on set, just you got to be safe. Um, and yes, what they do talk about in the documentary, there's not enough protection for kids. Um, I think, from my experience, there is enough protection for kids. However, there might not be enough protection for kids depending on the set that you're on. So it's just kind of one of those, you know, things where it's like every set has to abide by a certain level of parameters, or none of them do. Um, and
Hmm.
I have no answer for that. So, and that's something they bring up
Hmm.
as a home run point towards the end of the documentary is, oh, we need more protection for kids. Yeah, I mean, we probably even need more protection for adults too.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like just kids in general just need more
Yeah,
protection in this world, but
yeah,
yeah, especially in a situation like that where it's so easy because fr- I mean, this is just me assuming and basing my knowledge off of all feelings, no facts, but I'm under the impression that working on a set like that, it's very fast paced and things just happen so quick that it's like something can happen and nobody knows what's going on until it's already done and over with.
yes, that's exactly how it is. That's exactly how it is.
So,
That's how a lot of accidents happen. Like people get shot, because they're not using the correct safety measures, or um, props are mishandled, or someone gets lost. Hell, even I would often get lost just trying to get from one part of the set to another part of the set, because you get, like, depending on what you're there for. um it's like you're at work. Okay, I have a meeting in building A, in room C on the third floor, and then I need to, at 12 o'clock, I need to be over at, building D across the campus, on the second floor in room F at 12. And then it's like, well, college campuses being as, at times, elaborate as they can be, you know, you gotta you gotta find your way around. So it's kind of like,
right,
um, so yeah, depending on the set you are, depending on the set that you're on, you can easily get lost. You can easily go into an area you shouldn't be there, or someone could come into an area that they shouldn't be there, or someone could come into your area and that they shouldn't be there, or I'm just it's just I think, and that maybe that is another topic for discussion. And it might be different because the sets I were on were very there's no security. There's really no security Maybe one of them had some security, but other than that, there's really none. It's very loose, you know. But it might be different for film studios and for high profile actors. You know, AAA studios, AAA actors, AAA films. I have no idea what security is like, but for the sets I'm on, somebody could walk out from anywhere, and next thing you know, they're on set and walking around doing whatever, you know. So, um, trying to think of what else. Um, do you have any questions that you're wanting to go over, or any points you want to discuss, or?
Um, so it was brought up in the documentary, but
Hmm.
um, I actually, so part of the reason why I said that, like, I was kind of aware of this kind of situation before the documentary started, um I bought Jeanette McCurdy's book
Hmm.
on Audible and I listened to it, and I definitely recommend listening to it, because Jeanette actually narrates it herself. She reads her book to you, and
Okay.
um, and she briefly talks about the show's creator, like pressuring her to drink while she was underage, and um,
Wow.
you know, putting his hand on her leg and things like that, just
Uh.
making her very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that she only refers to him as the creator.
Hmm.
You don't upset the creator. Um, and she kept repeating
Okay.
that you don't upset the creator. And her life was just an absolute train wreck. The fact that she has come out of that as strong of a person as she is amazing. Um,
Hmm.
and that also shows the dark side of, you know, like parents exploiting their children
Right.
and living off of their children. Because, yeah, I mean, the book says it all. The book's titled I'm glad my mom died, and the cover art is her holding an urn with a smile on her face. That's so telling. Like it's impossible to not read between the lines. They're right there. There's no lines to read between. So it's just like I feel like Drake Bell had it really good because he had a parent that
Hmm.
really really gave a shit about him. Like it wasn't it, this is Drake's career. This is Drake's money. No, Drake can put his clothes on himself. You don't need to be here for that. Like
Yeah.
things like that, where Drake's dad is, like, first of all, an amazing parent, first and foremost. And he stepped back when he was told that Drake didn't want him involved anymore. Um, and he only made one request. And also, fuck Drake's mom for having one request, one perfectly reasonable request,
I'm pretty sure
and
she's
not
probably
doing anything
she's
better.
probably beating herself. She's probably been beating herself up over it for the past 2 decades. So
You know,
it's
which,
terrible she didn't follow her his one request, but you know I'm sure she's
mhm,
I'm sure she's beating herself up about it. But I agree with you. That
which
does.
part of me hopes she does,
Yeah, I mean, well, it's
because,
just the nature of the beast. Something like
mhm,
that happens to your
but
child. Yeah, I mean, even if it's not intentional, in a way you kind of fail them
right,
unintentionally, but that is also, you know, in one way that's terrible to say because it's not the parents' fault that that happened, but if you're not there to protect your child, then where are you?
Right.
But that's no nor here nor there.
So that's, yeah, but
Going back to
it's
Jeanette
just,
McCurdy's book.
yeah. So for those of you who might not know, Jeanette McCurdy, if her name is not familiar, she played Sam in iCarly and
Hmm.
then in Sam and Cat.
Hmm.
Uh, so her mom would drag her to every audition, every like just like picked up and moved their entire family to move them to LA so that, you know,
Wow.
because she was convinced that Jeanette was going to be the one that was going to save their family. And she, Jeanette's mom had like convinced her that this was her dream, this was her dream. And, that that one kids movie thing. It's like, no, mom, this isn't my dream. This is your dream. It
Yeah.
took her until
Yeah.
she was well into her 20s to realize that, but um, would drag her to all of these auditions, um, and Jeanette's mom had been battling breast cancer off and on for most of most of her life growing up, and
Hmm.
so um, it was always like she would always throw the fact that you know she didn't fight cancer for her attitude. She didn't fight cancer for her daughter to be completely ordinary, and just like throwing this cancer back and forth back at Jeanette every single time that she wanted to guilt her into doing something. Um, got her on the got her into eating disorders, taught her about calorie restriction. Uh, and that's something that Jeanette has like talked about a lot where, you know,
Wow.
her relationship with food was so terrible. And because part of the reason why she was trying to do that was because it's easier to land these roles as children if you have a child's body, and
Oh, jeez.
if you are restricting your calories, you can't gain
Grow.
a woman's body.
Well, you can't
So
grow. Yeah.
you can't grow. And so, like, Jeanette talks about how the moment that she realized that she was developing breasts, which is something that is totally normal and part of growing up, she cried. She didn't want them because that meant that she wouldn't be able to land these child roles as easily. And
Yeah.
so, like, her mom literally taught her how to have an eating disorder. And
Jeez.
um yeah, and so that's the other thing as well. I mean, yes, there should be more protection for kids on these sets so that um, people who work in this world can't do anything that is not okay. But also, I feel like there needs to be more attention paid to the families because
Hmm.
Drake was doing just fine when he was with his dad, but as soon as his mom was in charge of his career, things went spiraling.
Well,
Jeanette
at
never
that point,
had a
it
chance.
sounded like his mom wasn't really as involved because, like, once he told his dad to step away, Brian, excuse me, Brian Peck basically took over as his like his new manager. But no, I completely agree
Yeah,
with what you're saying. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
yeah. So, I, oh, that's fine. I mean, I just feel like there should also be some accountability. Like,
Hmm.
obviously, these parents didn't bring their kids into this career to be abused and harassed
Right.
by adults that should know better. Like, they didn't bring them into this career thinking that that was going to happen. They didn't throw them to the wolves, but they also didn't give them the stick. They weren't shepherding their children from the
Right.
wolves
Right.
either.
No, I
And
completely
so I
agree.
feel like there needs to be some responsibility, you know, held to the parents where it's like,
And that's a good thing that you
what do you mean you didn't see it?
that's a good point that you bring up because thinking back when I was on set, um, I maybe ever met like one or two parents that happened to be just hanging really close around their kids when I was on set for certain things. Um, like if so, two things. One, if a parent or guardian of the child that was on set, like if I was on set, either if they were there, I wouldn't have known because I just never interacted with them, or they're in a different part of the set, or if they're, or I wouldn't even have known if they were there because I hardly saw them, hardly interacted with like because you're pretty much surrounded by actor, director, producers, executives, not really executives, but producers, people making decisions, uh, prop handlers, um, wardrobe, stunts, stagehand. So just like a lot of the crew. But if there are parents of childs on set, I just either didn't interact with them by chance or because they were just never there. Or if they were there, you know, again, I didn't interact with them. So
Hmm.
that is something that I think should definitely be bumped up, having more parental involvement minute by minute with the
Hmm.
um, with the whenever kids are on set because it can lead to a lot of problems like we're discussing about this documentary. So, well, other than that, that is all that I have. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that the correct people get their comeuppance. I mean,
Yeah.
I there is one other point that I wanted to bring up because I know that uh Josh Peck
Hmm.
has been getting a lot of backlash. Um and I don't want to sit here and say that, like I don't know what I want to say, but I do know that it is unfair to blame Josh for not doing more for Drake during that time that they were working together. But
Hmm.
I think the other thing that people need to realize is these child actors were children.
That's
They
right. No, that's right.
holding them to a standard of adults.
No,
Holding
they
them
were
to a
children.
standard of adults is, yeah, it's not fair. Um, and the other thing to mention, Jeanette mentions it in her book, and the reason why she's able to is because they offered her hush money, like
Hmm.
thousands of dollars in hush money to just never bring up her experiences, and she said no.
Yep.
She did not take the money. Um, and so she talks about it because her silence was not bought. She was, yeah, she was a pretty relevant um, actress in that world, but she wasn't Josh Peck. How much money did he get offered for his silence? Because
Well,
he hasn't really talked about
yeah,
it,
but
not
to be
truly.
fair, it could be by choice, or it could be, maybe he
Hmm.
didn't see, hear, or witness. Maybe none of that stuff that happened to him, or maybe he just didn't bear witness to it. I don't know. I would hate to
Yeah,
think
but
that,
we don't know what that situation is.
well, no, but that's true. I would hate to think that, you know, um, one of the main characters of Drake and Josh is a sellout like that. I would hate to think that, but it very well could be, or very well could not be. I mean, time time will tell. Maybe we'll find out more later on. So
Hmm. Yeah, it's hard to say. I feel like also all of these people's lives have been absolutely blown up,
yes,
um, and under so much scrutiny that I mean, I feel like it's worth saying, like, at the end of the day, yes, they may be celebrities, but they are still people,
yes,
and I think that needs to, you know, you know, you can say whatever you want to say about, you know, how you think somebody's handling a situation, but Josh Peck didn't go on to that documentary. So we don't know what his story is. We don't know what
I
he saw.
agree.
We don't know what might
It's
have
true.
happened to him. We don't know if he is choked by an NDA. Uh, we just don't know. And there were a lot of actors on those sets that had so much happen to them, and I feel like a little grace should be given until the full picture is revealed.
Hmm. I agree.
So, yeah. One little shred of light that I think is worth mentioning about this whole situation though is oh, what is his last name? It was Jerry he played the brother on iCarly. He was the manager on he was the assistant manager in Drake and Josh. Jerry Trainer.
Hmm.
Uh, he he saw what was going on and he did what he could to continue to protect those kids. You know, he really was all of their brother. And, you know, he would, in his like really ridiculous joking way, let us go home, Dan. We're all tired and we want to go home, Dan. Like, he did what he could so that he wasn't fired from the show. So he had a reason to still be there and to intervene when the kids were obviously uncomfortable by like Dan Schneider and um, Brian Peck and all of these different. He saw what was going on, and bless him. And I'm so glad that he is getting all of the positive attention that he's getting because
Yes.
while yeah, he did what he could. He came in on his days off so that he could continue to be around those kids and run interference for them because there was not enough adult presence to stand up for them, so he did what he could, and you know he gets all the good karma now.
Hmm. He did. I right when you had mentioned him, I actually opened up my phone and there was a post about him, talking about the exact same thing. So yeah, he's sort of trending a little bit. So hopefully he does get the good recognition that he deserves, and um, assuming that there's nothing questionable about his character to be there. So well, other than that,
Yeah.
that's all that I have. I know this is a shorter than normal podcast, but then again, keep in mind this show was also only like 45 minutes per episode, 4 episodes, so there's not much more than that to talk about. I mean, there is more victims, more stories, things to talk about, but we just don't have the time to go over every single person in great detail. Um, but if you are happening to watch a video from this channel for the first time, please again subscribe, like, tell your friends and family about it, so that way every little ounce of help can go towards the podcast and keep it going. So thank you guys so much for walking. Yes, thank you so much for walking. No, thank you so much for watching. And Sydney, thank you again for coming on to the podcast. And hopefully we get to see you again. So,
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
all right. Well, take care, everybody, and peace.